the dorsal surface of the brainstem, visible here after removal of the cerebellum, obviously, and the fourth ventricle's walls. So we only see the floor of the fourth ventricle right here. The components here are under this line we have medulla oblongata. From here up to this line we have the pons, and then up here we have the mesencephalon. So we're just going to talk about a couple of things on each of them. Of course, talking about them all together, because they will eventually create the entire floor of the fourth ventricle, which also has components in the bulbar and in the pontine areas too. So, nevertheless, the bulbus, or the medulla oblongata, has two parts you can see here, very distinct from each other, that are separated by this V-shaped area here, which is called taenia choroidea ventriculi quarti. And this part under it we call the closed part, and the part here above it is the open part of the medulla. Why is it closed? Because it encloses the canalis centralis, which opens up wide in the fourth ventricle up here at the obex. So the closed part has the following features: sulcus medianus posterior, which obviously continues, as you can see, all the way up to the mesencephalon, and it doesn't stop here because it will continue in the aqueductus cerebri of Sylvius all the way up to the third ventricle. So sulcus medianus, and then you have sulcus intermedius posterior, sulcus posterolaterales. Between them we have two bundles, fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus, and then tuberculum nuclei gracilis and tuberculum nuclei cuneati. They and the fascicles end in their tubercles. Then to the side we have another proeminence, which we call tuberculum trigeminale, which is caused or created by the nucleus tractus spinalis nervi trigeminalis and the spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve. So these are the outer features, including also the pedunculus cerebellaris inferior, which eventually heads to cerebellum and then turns backwards to go into it. Then the open part will have a number of features as well, which eventually starts with the obex. And then, as you can see, to the side of the obex, right here, we'll have a small area which we call area postrema, and then next to it, more medial, we'll have trigonum nervi vagi and trigonum nervi hypoglossi. Trigonum nervi vagi is underneath it we have nucleus dorsalis nervi vagi, and underneath trigonum nervi hypoglossi we have, of course, the hypoglossonucleus. This trigone will continue upwards here into the so-called eminentia medialis, which is on the side of sulcus medianus posterior. And this eminentia medialis is delimited to the side by sulcus limitans, which starts up superiorly with fovea superior and ends inferiorly in fovea inferior right there. Next to fovea superior, we have a bulge on eminentia medialis, which we call colliculus facialis, created by the nucleus nervi abducentis that are circumvented by the facial fibers here. And slightly above fovea superior, we will have the locus ceruleus as well. Now, as you can see, white fibers cross this whole surface, stria medullares. These are the border between the pontine triangle and the bulbar triangle. And to the sides of the rhombus here, these triangular areas, house underneath them the vestibular nuclear complex, this is why we call these areas area vestibularis. The mesencephalon is the last part up here. It consists of these especially visible proeminent structures, which we call colliculi, colliculus superior, colliculus inferior. They together create lamina tecti or lamina quadrigemina. Underneath the inferior colliculi, we have frenulum veli medullare superioris, which continues in the velum medullare superius, which is missing from here, that connects the two also cut pedunculus cerebellaris superiors. So this is pedunculus cerebellaris superior, this is the remnant of velum medullare superior. Right underneath the inferior colliculi, we have the apparent origin of the fourth cranial nerve, nervus trochlearis, which is not really visible on here. And then if I turn the specimen just a bit, we will see to the side the arms of the collicles, brachium colliculi inferioris and brachium colliculi superioris. So these arms, these brachia, are practically going towards the diencephalon, towards the corpus geniculatum mediale and laterale. Now if I turn even more, we'll see on the side this huge cut surface is the brachium pontis or pedunculus cerebellaris medius. This is, as we mentioned already, pedunculus cerebellaris inferior, and this is the cut surface of pedunculus cerebellaris superior. These are the connections of the brainstem to the cerebellum. Zooming in on fossa rhomboidea, on the inferior part of it, we see these details a bit better. So we have here the taenia choroidea ventriculi quarti, again here, and the obex is the opening at the meeting point of the two taniae, here, the opening, obex. To the side, right there, we have the area postrema. Then this little band here is trigonum nervi vagi, and even more medial is trigonum nervi hypoglossi. If we move forward, we'll see eminentia medialis going all the way up, and then fovea inferior, fovea superior, and sulcus limitans. Next to fovea superior, we will see here eminentia colliculus facialis, and on top of fovea superior, we'll see locus ceruleus. These are the striae medullaris, these white bands crossing transversally, white bands. This is area vestibularis in the side of the triangle here. On this specimen, I wanted to demonstrate the anterior surface of the medulla oblongata, parts of the cerebellopontine angle, and parts of the fourth ventricle. On the anterior surface of the medulla, we will observe fissura mediana anterior, foramen cecum, sulcus bulbopontinus, which sulcus bulbopontinus eventually separates the pons from the medulla. Lateral to the fissure, we have this proeminent feature, piramis medullae oblongatae, and even more lateral to that, we have the oliva. The olive has a groove in front of it, sulcus preolivaris, and another one behind it, sulcus retroolivaris. Both of them will eventually join up to continue as sulcus anterolateralis of the spinal cord. Sulcus preolivaris holds the rootlets of the hypoglossal nerve, while sulcus retroolivaris has the apparent origin of cranial nerve 9 up here, cranial nerve 10, and the cranial root of cranial nerve 11. Then we pass superiorly to the olive, which here is called supraolivary groove, sulcus supraolivaris, at the medial angle of which we have the apparent origin of nervus abducens. And then we pass to the lateral angle, which we called the pontocerebellar angle, in which we have the apparent origin of cranial nerve 7, nervus facialis, and cranial nerve 8, nervus vestibulocochlearis. This angle is created by the connection of the pons to the cerebellum, brachium pontis, or otherwise known as pedunculus cerebellaris medius, and this little part of the cerebellum, which is called the flocculus, which is part of the flocculonodular lobe. On the brachium pontis, upper part here, we will see the apparent origin of the cranial nerve 5, meaning trigeminal nerve, with its two components, portio major, the big one, and the separated portio minor lateral to it here, portio major and portio minor. Then if we turn inside and to look into the fourth ventricle, we will see the following features. Well, first, the connections of the brainstem to the cerebellum are cut here. This is pedunculus cerebellaris medius. This is pedunculus cerebellaris superior. Also on the other side, pedunculus cerebellaris superior. And then, as you can see, the two superior peduncles are connected by this white matter sheet we call velum medullare superior. This is the superior posterior wall of the fourth ventricle. And then, attached to this little sheet, we have the lingula of the cerebellum, a small component of the midline vermal part of the cerebellum. And then we have under here the fourth ventricle's inferior posterior wall, velum medullare inferior, with its cauliflower-like capillary networks, which we call plexus choroideus ventriculi quarti. It's the choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle here.